When you pay attention, you're going to see like three main categories of experience. There's the direct experience, which is like what's happening. I'm sitting here. I'm seeing you. It's quite quiet in here, so I'm just hearing maybe small sounds. That's the direct experience. There's the awareness. This is just like the knowing that is happening that's behind that. And the interesting thing about awareness is that it's untouched by the experience. Like my awareness of sadness is not sad. My awareness of fear is not fearful. My awareness of pain is not in pain. So there's this aspect of experience that is just able to be there and hold what is present. But there's a layer in between, and this is the story that is really what moderates the relationship between awareness and experience, and what conditions whether we're suffering or whether there's ease. And so in terms of experience in people's life, right, you can imagine someone losing a job. So in this case, just like, okay, job is lost, direct experience. I'm aware that I lost my job. Story, I'm not worthy, or I'm a bad husband, or I'm a bad provider for my family, right? And so that story is going to be the thing that conditions the emotions and the suffering that comes next. We can't impact the experience that's arising. We can't do anything, nor do we want to do anything with the awareness that's arising. But we can intercept the story and start to play with the story and see how the story that we tell about an experience opens up a different emotional expression. And so in that case, right, like you have a job loss, and I'm not going to dismiss like the meaning and how that can shift someone's life. But there could also be another story around this, that potentially this is making way for something that wants to come through that I've been fighting against. Or potentially this is giving me an opportunity to follow a creative pursuit that I haven't had a good reason to do because there's been, this has been so good. Or maybe this is giving me some time to really reevaluate what is going on in my life, and do I need to make any serious shifts? So the story is what conditions the emotional response, and seeing that we can impact that story is another way, especially in the early stages of our spirituality. And I would actually even put that more in the camp of just like personal growth, of like when you're playing with the story, is just seeing like, oh, I can shift the thoughts in my mind and therefore shift how I feel in my body. And I think that's where a lot of people start on their personal growth path. And mindfulness itself, the ability to anchor in the awareness, begins to show you the distinction between like, oh, I'm seeing Andre, and then there's thoughts about Andre. They're all good thoughts.
All great thoughts, right?
So that's the story, and that will condition. Like, even if I think like, what does Andre think about what I'm saying right now? And then I could get in my head of just like, oh, am I saying good things? Are people who are listening, are they going to like me? If I even just let that go, though, right? So then there's a whole thing of like, what happens when we let go of the story? Then I can really just drop into a channel with you. And we might both have our stories, but we kind of like let that exist as radio noise in the background and drop into like a shared frequency that is creating this moment. And the word frequency doesn't have to be like mystical. It's kind of just like, think of it as like connection, just like, oh, the curiosity of what's actually arising and what happens when I meet what's arising without story, but just curiosity. What awakens within me and what is shared from that place. So yes, there's the layer of being able to work with that story. And then there's another layer of seeing that and seeing that we can let go of the story. And that's when like we invite even just like another layer of surrender.
Yeah, that complementary aspect and dynamic between replacing disempowering stories with empowering ones, and then also waking up to an awareness that encompasses and will always be the background field in which any story arises, really support each other. And again, it can be easy to get sucked into one camp or the other. I think it's great to replace old narratives that are old conditioning passed down through culture, family, genes, whatever, with new ones, you know? I am worthy is much better than I'm not worthy in terms of your internal experience and the fruits that it's going to bear in your external reality. But even more empowering perhaps is to wake up to your worth that is inherent to your being beyond any story of it comparing to something externally, you know,
Yeah.
whether it being I am not worthy or I am worthy. And part of getting to that point is I feel so much of creating distance from us in any story, whether it's nice or not nice, depending on what we think it is. And that requires practice to create distance between us and any narrative or story that's happening neurologically. Like the reality is we're so close to our own bullshit. We're if we don't brush our teeth, as the saying goes, for a couple weeks, we won't really notice it because the change is so gradual and is so close to us. We become accustomed to it, but other people can tell, right?
Mhm.
And so that's, I think, where it becomes really easy when you're at Thanksgiving dinner and you see all the neuroses in your family members, or you're in school and you can see things and patterns that play out in other people way more easily than you can yourself.
Mhm.
Of course, you have them too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
As much as we don't like to admit it. Um, but it's in creating distance between us and those stories and those patterns that we begin to see them. And so
And can I
yeah, well, I just wanted you to jump in here too, because you talked about the jump from awareness to story, and obviously you were practicing cultivating the awareness between the two.
Yeah. Well, so I think what's really cool here and an interesting edge when you're working with story is so my experience, right? I have done probably 10,000 hours plus of Vipassana training, just aware, aware, aware. And it's a beautiful practice. I still do it. It helps soften edges of conditioning in a profound way. It helps remind me that there's a place that is separate from the fear and the control and the thoughts. Something else, though, that it did to me is we all have different survival strategies. Some of us have like a fight, some of us have a flee, some of us have a fawn, some of us have a freeze. I have more of a freeze survival strategy, which means that when things get stressful, kind of get quiet, a little bit more withdrawn, want to isolate. Well, what does it look like when someone gets quiet, a little bit more withdrawn, wants to isolate? Looks a lot like meditation. I would say a lot of meditators that you see on retreats are people who have a disposition or have certain survival strategies that they can. It's a intense way to put it, but they can like mask as morality or spirituality. Not intentionally, it happens subconsciously. At least I'll just own it. This was my experience. This was a way for me to relate to my experience in a way that was safe based on my particular strategies. So, what I often found with my meditation training is that I got so good at just watching experience and being the observer that it created some distance between the emotion, between the sensation, and between the thought, like, and my personality structure. A lot of distance where I could just kind of like sit back. But if I really looked at it, yeah, there was some freedom there, but it was also kind of the similar freedom as like a low grade freeze response. I describe it as like it let me sit on my perch of awareness, like, oh, that's your pain down there. Oh, that's your emotion. Oh, it's just an emotion. Just watch it. Just come and go. It's impermanent. Everything will come and go. Powerful. There was wisdom, but it was wisdom hijacked by aspects of my personality structure that were afraid to make true contact with experience. So, how does this relate to story? Yeah, there's power to creating separation from story, seeing story as something that you can manipulate, seeing that you are not story. There is also power to getting intimate with story and seeing story as like the tip of a thread of something that is wound up deep in your system where you actually like let yourself get into the story of I'm not worthy. It's like instead of like shifting that to I am worthy and trying to stay on the perch of I am worthy, which has value to an extent, what if you let yourself just feel like the I am unworthiness, and not just feel it, like let yourself get into it. Like, I'm not worthy. Like, God, I suck. I'm a terrible. Once you give that permission to go, it's gonna it's gonna take you into your body. It's gonna show you and bring you into the places where that core conditioning and wounding lives. And much of how we live our lives, especially when we're meditating, and this is where like so many spiritual practitioners get stuck in their embodiment practice, is their practice like keeps them, whether it's just sitting still in meditation or it's maintaining an idea of how I'm supposed to practice and not getting too messy, or just staying in awareness. It keeps them from having enough permission to get into the messiness and the rawness of the experience that is holding together these patterns of conditioning, that's not letting the awakened state come through in the first place. And that is a key thing that I also had to recognize for myself, that comes to how do you orient to what is spiritual growth? Do you believe you are fundamentally whole, and that the joy and the compassion and the love and the freedom that you're looking for is innate to you? Or do you feel like you are fundamentally broken? If you are fundamentally whole, then your practice is about subtraction. You are releasing the protective layers of conditioning that have learned it's not safe to be yourself, to not trust that space. If you believe you are fundamentally broken, then your practice is going to be about adding things and thoughts and ideas that build an idealized view. My direct experience has been we are fundamentally whole. My direct experience of the greatest transformation that I have is when I let go of the patterns telling me who I need to be, including the pattern saying you need to have a positive thought. It's when I let myself kind of now meet the negative thought, take that into the wound underneath, let the wound be decoupled from shame, meet the awakened state, which is there to hold you. If you soften into it, if you surrender, it will be there to hold you. Let that now take the burden of holding your experience. That's where the wound begins to heal. And as soon as that ball that is held together by all of these protective layers of who you need to be in order to be good or right or spiritual, like those beliefs get to fall away, the core pain gets to be touched and released. And now that particular line goes away. And it's another area in your personality structure that is free for wisdom and awakening to emerge. And that is why I often say you need to descend if you want to transcend. You have to let yourself go down. The self energy, true self energy, has a gravitational pull to it. But we keep ourselves from going through the layers that it wants to bring us back through because of our ideas of how we're supposed to practice, how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to think. And it prevents us from letting ourselves be in the messiness of our experience. I'll just give one more example of this. Like when people try to force forgiveness and just like someone hurt you and you feel angry, but you don't want to feel angry anymore. Or God told you you're supposed to forgive, or Jesus told you to forgive, or your mom told you you're supposed to forgive. So you try to forgive. Very noble pursuit. The perspective I take is that forgiveness is innate to the heart space. If you surrender over the burden of not knowing what to do with this person to the heart space, that's how forgiveness takes care of itself. Your true nature is forgiveness. You can't do forgiveness, especially the parts of you. You can perform it, but it's not from the deepest place. So a lot of people try to perform forgiveness. I'm not mad, or it's okay. And then like you interact in this half-baked way where you're like kind of okay with the other person and you also still resent them. And then these projections come up, and then the dynamic just exists on this plane of you're not in truth. You're not actually in connection. You're playing out parts and patterns and protections. What that person first needs to do is give them space to be angry and to feel hurt, and then take that down. And what does it touch from 7th grade where you were betrayed? Like an old wound that's stuck in the system that this activates. It's like, oh, wow. So this gives me an opportunity to touch this. And you take that down. And that could be a long journey. We're not talking like minutes or hours. Sometimes this is like weeks or months. but it is the unwinding of the personality structure. And so when you meet what is given, you stay in the sequence of what is being presented to you. And this goes back to the quote we talked about before, the reason we miss our lives, because we have some idea that there is a future moment more worth our presence right now. If you bow to what is given to you in this moment and trust that there is wisdom here, even though your mind can't understand it, you are meeting the most alive thing in your experience. And when you do that, it will give way to the next most alive thing and the next most alive thing. And then you'll hit a stuck point. And then that's like the spiritual waiting room where it's just like, oh, I don't know where to go here, but I can't abandon myself anymore. You let yourself cook in it until something else gives way and you go down and down and down. And transcendence is just the reconnection back to our natural state.